Hello, this is Gretchen, the Verdant Crafter. Welcome to the second set of my Thanksgiving card series for 2017. Today we're going to be making a whole bunch of cards which are super simple to make and very fun. This uses sort of a watercolor stamping technique, which is very simple to do and produces some very graphic results. I'm going to be using the Hero Arts Color Layering Grateful Leaves stamp set, and I'm specifically using the maple leaf. I'm coloring on it with a whole bunch of different fall Zig Clean color markers. They're fall colored, so yellow, orange, red, some purple, some brown, a little bit of green, just those colors. I'm spraying on it with water, and then I'm pressing it into the paper. I have edited the video, so you do not see me holding the stamp set there for extended periods of time. I, for the most part, would stamp it, hold it down for a good 30 seconds to a minute, put a heavy weight on it, and then walk away. This allows the color to truly transfer from the stamp to the watercolor paper. Watercolor paper is great because it does not quite resist the ink, but it allows color to move on top of it, which isn't something that regular paper does. Regular paper really absorbs the color right away. So you have a one-shot deal, whereas with watercolor paper, you have more than one shot. There, I wasn't happy with the color in one area, so I just colored on that area of the stamp, sprayed it with water, and pressed down. I think if you're restamping, it's less of an issue, but for the first stamp, it's very important that you just leave it there for a while. Here you can see that I added more of the purple, sort of a magenta color in. There I'm using that color, I'm using some orange, I'm using some red. I created a whole bunch of cards, and these have very different colors. You can see I didn't let it sit for very long. That's really when you want to come back with another layer of color to deepen it, to get it a little bit more intense. So by now I have stamped a whole bunch of sheets of paper, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to stamp the second layer of the color layering leaves. This is going to create the veins of the leaf. I am using Versamark ink. I used my anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to use Simon Says Stamp Antique Gold Embossing Powder. This is a fine embossing powder, and it has a great gold color. Recently, you probably know, Jennifer McGuire came out with a video where she stamped and restamped with embossing powder. So she built up many layers, usually about 3 layers, to create a lot of dimension and depth. So here I've only stamped once. You're going to see me come, and there I'm comparing it with one that I haven't stamped at all. I did think about not doing any veining at all, or doing some veining with watercolor, but doing the heat embossing is so simple, and I think it's very dramatic. Here I'm going to be doing a second layer of heat embossing, and actually for most of the cards I ended up doing 3 layers of heat embossing because I felt like it gave a lot of dimension, and it didn't take a lot of work to do this. As you probably know, embossing powder melts really easily on top of itself, versus when it's on paper it takes a little bit longer. So it doesn't require you to heat up your heat gun for as long. Here I'm comparing 1 layer of embossing powder to 2 layers of embossing powder, and I'm trying to show you that the first, when there's only 1 layer, it's a little bit more bumpy, whereas 2 layers are a lot more rigid. So that card has 3 layers of embossing powder. This card has 2 layers, and this card has 1 layer. I'm almost at real time showing you these so that you can see how much more dramatic 3 layers versus 2 layers versus 1 layer is. Look at that 3 layers. It's super smooth. It catches the light. 1 layer is much more bumpy. 2 layers is nice, but I do think that 3 layers is most dramatic, and it's so gorgeous. For most of these cards, for all of these cards, I used a variety of sentiments. So here, I used My Favorite Things primitive white paper as my card base. So I cut it at 4¼ inches, and now I'm scoring at 5½ inches. I'm using my Teflon bone folder and a score buddy. I have a whole bunch of these because we're going to make tons of cards. Here I'm stamping Happy Thanksgiving from the Keller Layering Grateful Leaf stamp set, and I'm embossing it with Hero Arts Antique Gold Embossing Powder. I am going to add a second layer of this because, again, I think it goes with the veins that were stamped, and I do like how much more dramatic and smooth it looks. Most of my sentiments were stamped 2, possibly 3 times. Here, I'm using a T ruler, and that's not really required. And I have a paintbrush. This is a water brush, and I'm going to paint lines that are about the same length from the leaf. I'm painting them on all 4 sides. And for this first one, I am using a T ruler so that you can see I'm getting very straight lines, and I'm going to use a T ruler to tear the paper. I have wet the paper with water because that makes the paper more pliable, and it also makes it a little weaker, so it's easier to tear. For these cards, I really wanted the torn edge because I felt like that added another dimension to them. There you can see that I'm just lining up my ruler with where the wet line is, and I'm tearing it. I get very straight lines this way, and I don't get a lot of, sort of the ruffle along the edge. I made 2 or 3 cards this way out of the 13 cards I made, but most of them I made this way. I just freehanded lines, and then I freehand tore them along those lines. I will say I think the longer you let the water sit, the easier it will be to tear. Obviously, you don't have to get the paper wet to tear it. It just allows you to control where it tears a little bit more easily. You can see this one is definitely more uneven. It's got more of that sort of ruffled edge, and it's a little bit more organic. And there, I'm going to town on it. So these are the 2 pieces. One was cut very precisely or torn very precisely, and one wasn't. And I believe they have 3 layers of embossing. So these are the 13 pieces of leaves that I have, and here's some fun foam. I'm just cutting that to be a little narrower than my leaf, and I'm going to end up cutting it to be a little not as long as my leaf. Geometry is doing me well today. For this, I'm using some score tape, and I am using my scissors to cut it because I find it easier to peel off the backing if it's cut versus torn. But this is very easy tape to tear. Some tape runners don't work so well with fun foam. The tape runners that I currently have don't work very well with it, but a lot of them do, especially if you have the ATG tape runner. They do work well with it, so use what you have. Here I sort of have it lined up a little crooked, and I'm okay with that. I think it adds to the dimension. In fact, it was very deliberately lined up crooked. I'm going to make 2 or 3 of these on screen, but they were all made the same way. Some are very straight, some are crooked. There are no other embellishments on these. One of them I used foam tape instead of the fun foam, and that's simply because I would have had to cut more fun foam, and I didn't really want to cut another strip. These are very simple cards. It was super easy to make all 13 of them. It was a lot of fun. One of them I sprayed water on the paper before I stamped it, so it's got a fuzzier leaf. I didn't like that, so that's why there's only 13 of them. I only stamped one of those. I used a variety of sentiments from the Hero Arts Color and Layering Grateful Leaves set and from the Simon Says Stamp Autumn Greetings set, and from the Hero Arts My Monthly Hero September 2017 card kit. I stamped Autumn Greetings, and I believe, there we go. I used Happy Thanksgiving for a lot of these. I believe for 2 of them, I stamped I'm Thankful You Are Part of My World from the Hero Arts You Are Loved messages. There, I'm just showing you the cards that I made with the stamp set that I used. I love that card with the purple and the orange and the yellow. I think it's super dramatic and so pretty. I am right now planning on making about 100 cards using different techniques to create fairly simple cards. And I'm hoping to write personal messages to my students and give them to them for Thanksgiving and to a whole bunch of my coworkers. This is the second video in my Thanksgiving card series. I want to thank you for watching. I hope that you were inspired and I hope that you got some good ideas. These are very simple cards to make. I was able to mass produce them in a day. There you can see the one that I sprayed with water. I sprayed the paper with water before stamping it. And it just gives a different technique, a different look. I hope that you had fun. Enjoy making Thanksgiving cards. I hope that you send some out to people. It's always nice to say that you're thankful for who they are and for them being in your life. I hope that you have a great day. Thanks.